we call it soul partnership, which does distinguish it from our personal relationships with our souls. And soul partnership is a relationship, a partnership in which two or potentially more people, but for the context of this conversation, we'll say two people, come together with the intention of the relationship not only being a beautiful, sexy, loving, nurturing relationship, but also the highest value of that relationship being the evolution, the growth, and the becoming along the soul path for each of us individually. And as we've been discovering, there's also like this third entity, this like soul of the relationship. We're also fostering and feeding energy to and cultivating together of like, what is our work together? What is our path of service as a couple, and what is our individual paths of service and gifts and all of those things. So,
yeah. And I love that, because we have our own kind of purpose that we're working towards, right? We have our own kind of path that we're walking, our ideas and inside our own head and, things that we're marinating on. And then all of a sudden another individual comes into your life and you're like, oh shit, like, I guess this chunk of data doesn't fit anymore, right? This doesn't fit with my life with this person, or it's not applicable, at least right now. This person has some really cool different ideas that I didn't even think about that are now marinating with me in different ways. So it's like your teachers present themselves in the strangest of ways. And by no means am I saying like your romantic partner or your soul partner is your teacher supposed to be, but it also, like, everything's a teacher, right? Like my dog is one of the biggest teachers I've ever had, right? Everything in your life has the potential to be a big teacher if you can kind of see it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's those ideas that I don't know about because I can't be in your head. So I need you and your brain and the way that you're socially constructed and constructed in a physiology to present me with these things that strike you as to be interesting, because I can't get there unless somebody like yourself can explain them to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm curious with that concept too, what I hear or what it sparks inside of me is the responsibility that I have to myself and my soul, regardless of who is in my life and to what depth that might be or how intimate that might be. Is that how you would kind of frame that between the two of you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're pointing to something that we kind of had to discover in our own way, because as you were mentioning, Adam, like when we first met, that's not necessarily how our relationship was oriented, although we came to discover that. And Awa, as you just said that, it's like, I think of some of our normal practices now where we are almost 18 years in, where it's like, if I'm not having my soul dates, dates with myself, my artist self, my beloved self, my inner beloved, whatever, like if I'm not doing that, if I'm not engaged in that, this gets way more challenging. And and I'm pointing to between me and Jared right now, like, yeah, there's the tending of the self and the soul and our own depths to then bring back to the soul partnership and find that alchemy. And it really has to be an individual. I've found for me, it has to be an individual tending out, carving out of that space.
I love your recent, at least for me recently, seeing you sharing on your social media some of your soul dates with yourself, particularly the singing.
Yeah.
Why am I forgetting the name of the band?
Florence and the Machine.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. Love that.
And I was like, I want to have a karaoke date with myself. That sounds amazing.
So fun. I highly encourage.
Right.
Well, when did you guys get to the point of even considering this as part of a direction you wanted to go in with your relationship? Because maybe going forward, you could see a relationship like, oh, this is a great concept. I want to make sure that we talk about this going into it. But you guys have been together for a long time. And so like, did this occur to you throughout the relationship? And it's like, oh, well, this is an interesting way that we can move together as, in this kind of partnership together. How did the idea kind of like come to you? How did y'all embrace it? Was there kind of maybe a push at the first, being like, oh, this doesn't make sense to me, or was it all in right away?
I think from the beginning we met in the personal development space, so we did have different language for it back then. I don't think we quite had the exposure to soul work that we do now in our own, kind of depths, as is the case with anyone as they grow. But yeah, we met in this like world of, oh, we're up to big things. We're going to make a difference in the world. We value the same thing. Let's have our relationship make a difference, not just for us, but for others. And so that was there, I'd say, from the very, very beginning. But as things progressed, it became clear it was something different. And it was really Jared. This is Jared's concept, to give credit where credit is due. And because I was so resistant to the Disney princess soulmate, that was just like gross. And I remember sitting on the riverbank one time with Jared, which is something we do frequently. And that's like the third energy of our relationship. If we're not on a river together, then life gets harder. So we're sitting on a riverbank one day, and I just had this realization, like, holy shit, we are soulmates. And but how much I resisted that term. And I just remember turning to him and saying, like, I understand now. And yeah, just because of so much of my resistance. But
the camera zoomed in.
Yeah, and I would say we didn't have like the soul language for it. We weren't calling it soul or soulmate or soul partner or anything like that until we moved up to Washington, went to Wilderness Awareness School, met Laura Gunyon, who's a underworld guide, works for Animas Valley. She introduced us to Bill Plotkin's work. And that introduced this huge world of vocabulary and maps and understanding of the journey to soul. And that, I just came alive when I started hearing these things. It was like, oh, I'm hungry for this. And so I dived in really deep. Laurie started getting into it as I got nerdier and nerdier. We both took programs with Animas Valley. And for between 8 and 10 years have been pretty steeped in that world. And it's really shaped our individual paths, our paths as a couple. And then, in the last 2 or 3 years, it started. There started being our own unique language. It wasn't Bill Plotkin's language; it was ours and addressing in relationship, because Bill's work is very much about the individual and community, but there wasn't much about couples. How do you do this as a couple? And so a lot of fun stony times on riverbanks and in canoes, and letting our minds wander and dream and share and explore together. This concept started becoming really clear to us and seeing backwards too throughout our relationship of all the ways that we have stood for each other and our gifts and encouraged each other. And when one of us is freaking out, being like, no, you're on the right path, keep going. Even if it was inconvenient for the other, but really being a stand for each other. And then a year and a half ago, spring, we actually recommitted to our marriage vows. We created new vows. And that wasn't just oh, we're getting remarried because we love each other even more now. I mean, it was that, but it was also really what was in those vows was our commitments to each other as souls and as souls intertwined in this lifetime, and what our commitments are to each other in forwarding our soul path, both individually and collectively. That's kind of how it started to come about. And we just continue to explore that. It's steeped in all of our work individually and collectively with clients, of both at the individual level. How are you connecting to soul? How are you being invited to descend into the underworld? And how are you doing that as a couple? And we're more and more, as time goes on, understanding that more and being invited by couples more and more to support them in that journey. I feel like there's an awakening right now in romance in general. I think the growth we're seeing in polyamory and just alternative styles of relationship. I think one of those desires or needs that's showing up, that's rising to the surface for a lot of couples is like, how do we go deeper? How do we have our life not just be about the day to day and taking care of the home and the kids and the work, but how are we actually nourishing what we're really here for? How are we supporting each other in that? So that's where we're currently really excited about and exploring and working with people on.
Yeah, I love that. So when you started this conversation just now, you said that you guys were both individually doing your work as individuals, and then you found each other. And Bell Hooks has this amazing quote where she talks about, stop trying to find the person that completes you and find the person that can hold the space you can complete yourself. And I think that resonates so deeply because, like in these misguided ideas of like, oh, I'm going to find the perfect match and they're going to be my other half and we're going to be the da-da-das and all this shit. It's like, okay, there's this, this fictitious idea of the Disney princess thing we just kind of monikered earlier, where, you're looking for that savior to take care of you or that person that you're going to provide for or whatever the thing is, right? And a lot of these views don't even line up, don't want to be lined up, let alone culturally line up with what we're doing anymore. And so having that wherewithal to look at it and say like, no, I'm choosing a person because I want to grow with this person. I don't want this person to fix me. I want somebody that we can like heal together. We can grow together. We can develop some cool shit together. We can develop our own languages and our own kind of cultural understanding together. This is where that idea of common sense comes from. Common sense isn't a commonality between everybody. It's a cultural commonality. And sometimes it's a household commonality. And sometimes it's a mutual like couple commonality. But there's an intimacy that's created with that commonality because it's yours. And you're working on developing it. And it might have your own vocabulary, your own vernacular, but it makes intimate sense to both of you. And that gives us something to really kind of look at and be like, hey, we're creating something beautiful. And it doesn't have to make sense to my neighbors. It doesn't have to make sense to my parents. It makes the fuck sense to me and it makes me feel good. And I think we need to define that. We need to have the courage to take those opportunities to define that stuff within ourselves. So then that can be an example somebody doesn't even know they're looking for and be like, holy shit, they're doing something that's different. I want to do something different. I don't want to do this 9 to 5, go home and just like change diapers and cook dinner all the fucking time. Like I want to have a life where it's going to be explorative and also taking care of my kids or my family or my responsibilities.
Yeah. I love the like fluidity, and to me it speaks to a shift in how we understand what love truly is in relationship. And I think the word love is misdefined or falsely defined in a lot of ways that we relate. And it sounds really beautiful as you're sharing about it. And naturally I'm like, so where'd all the shit come through? Like, I want to know about where you guys got dirty and shit got hard and the things, like that really brought you to your knees and helped you break through incredible barriers because we're all still human, right? So like if, for instance, like I want to live where it's warm and I can be in the water, and I've chosen to stay in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Today is a glorious day that's demonstrating what is possible. But it's, it's a compromise that I've made, and I don't feel bitter or resentful. I used to. I don't feel bitter or resentful because it's something that makes it possible for me to provide a life that is really important for my children, right? And the backstory is they get to be here with their dad. So like there's a huge compromise that I've made with what I feel my soul wants and is getting closer as my kids get older. But that's the curiosity that I have about your story that brought you to a place where you can sit here today and talk about what it actually means to support each other and be that accountability for what your partner wants, even if it's not what you want.
Yeah, I mean, as you two are talking, I was thinking too about like the soul language of Plotkin's work and like the core wound. And I think it's taken us a while to discover we're still discovering, but get our hands around some of the intricacies of like Jared's core wound and my core wound being so perfectly situated that the closer they get. It's like they're just designed to poke and prod at all of the exact sensitive places. And we for sure have had that, in the decade that Jared was just referring to, not even just the ceremony 2 years ago, but, we broke up. We were about to be getting divorced. I was working on the paperwork. I put that in quotes because Jared knows I never really did it and drug my feet the entire time. But yeah, that we were pretty clear we weren't going to be together. And that was one of those moments where the way Jared was with me gave me so much more of myself. And I had this really embodied experience of love from him, even though I was saying, I'm not sure I want to be with you in the way that we had discussed and that I promised at the altar 7 years ago as a 25-year-old thinking I knew what the world was. So yeah, just to be able to go to those like really heartbreaking places together and still say like, but I love you and I see you and I want you to be happy. And then back to the ceremony 2 years ago. I mean, in some ways it was really, in many ways, it was really, really beautiful. And in other ways, it's kind of the most terrifying territory we've been in our relationship because I'm clear what Jared is listening to, and I have no idea about his soul. Like I've got glimpses that he's shared with me, but I'm still discovering about, the deep mysteries of me. So there's this part of me that feels more sure than ever that we're soul partners and we're in it for the long haul. And then there's this other part of me that's convinced, like, oh, I have no idea. Like I have no idea, and it could end next week. And then we could talk about my core wounding around abandonment and my childhood and all that. But, you get the point. Like it gets real messy.
It brings up the two different areas that I've studied between the Gottman's work and Esther Perel's work, like those polarities where the Gottmans are like, get as close as you can and know everything. And that's what creates like a strong bond. And Esther's like, but keep mystery, like keep a mystery. And so like when you shared that, I'm like, I get that duality that like lives within me. Like I have this certainty, but then do I?
I think life is full of dualities because our opportunities. I mean, there's the early bird gets the worm, and then there's good things come to those who wait, right? There's like so many different ways. But I think what that does is that allows us to really understand that we can change our perspective to whatever we need it to in a positive or negative way, right? There's so many opportunities to look at these different things, and we could be like, oh, that's a shadow thing, and that's a something we need to like work on. And then in another person's life, that could be like, I'm working towards that healing. That's my version of healing is what you call a shadow, right? So it's like taking time to really define what things mean for us, like what the relationship is that we're either starting at or growing towards, leaving it open for the idea to change as we move along for those ideas, right? As we grow as a couple or as a friendship or whatever it is. If we can keep those ideas open, then information can come in to help those ideas, right? It is that balance and that check-in constantly. And I'm not good at it, right? I'll be the first one to admit it. I'm not good at it. I've had many failed relationships that can tell me that, but I've also learned a lot from those quote unquote failed relationships, to make me at least a better individual and hopefully a better partner when that opportunity arises,
Yeah, that actually, you saying that, it makes me curious, like what, Jared, would you share on which, memory is an interesting thing to tap into, but from your recollection, when you two were in that space and Laurie was quote unquote doing the paperwork for a divorce, what was happening for you? And were you consciously making an effort to show up for her in that way, or was it you just taking care of yourself and the end result was that she felt that spaciousness? Like what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I love how you worded that. It was kind of both. I was really struggling when she first came to me and was like, I don't think I can be married to you anymore, and I was completely flabbergasted. Like it took me totally by surprise. And I was coming back with like, look, what do you need? Do you need like a year to go wander and take some time and find yourself and figure out what you want and need? Like I got all this space in the world, but like, we don't need to break up. And that she was still like, no, I need to just not be married to you. And I went through a whole cycle of feeling like a failure and yeah, just like I imagine what a lot of people feel when they go through a separation and move towards a divorce, of like the cultural stink of that, and like, oh, I'm rotten, or I'm bad at this, or I failed this relationship. And I went through that space for, a few months probably. And I finally got to this place where I was just really tired of feeling like that, and was like, this is dumb. I can do something about this. I have all these tools from all this personal development work I've done. And one of the core distinctions of that training and work I had done was around integrity and my word. And I found what was really hard for me is that I had given my word to things. I had stood up in front of all of my family and friends and Lori and her family and friends and promised some really big promises that I felt really good about. And then I was like, oh, well, now there's what feels like this external source is now saying I don't get to keep my word on that. Lori said she doesn't want to be married to me anymore, and therefore I have to give up on those promises. I was like, well, that's dumb. I don't like that. And so I like went back and I looked at my vows, and I was really sitting with them, and I was like, well, there's nothing here that says we have to stay married for me to keep my word on these. Like, I really can keep my promise here, and that would give me incredible amounts of power. Like, I would feel so much better, and like I'm in integrity and like my life works when I'm actually fulfilling on the biggest promises I've ever made. And so I came back to Lori at that point, and we were still very close. We were working together as like apprentice instructors for a nature program, and we're around each other a lot. We were still living on the same property. And so, but I came back to her and I shared that with her. I was like, I hear you. You want to be divorced. Got it. Don't love it, but I got it. And I'm going to keep my vows. Like, I'm not giving up on those. So I'm still going to show up for you. I'm still going to make sure you have an incredible life. I'm still going to love you with every ounce that I have. I'm going to care for you. I'm going to protect you as best I can. Like, I'm showing up. You do you. I'm showing up. And that was a big turning point in that version of our relationship. And created something. It made something possible. That was like, oh, it doesn't matter what our relationship status is. There's this honoring. And in general, I think that's what really arose in that period of about a year that we were apart. It wasn't about our relationship status and were we living together or were we not? Were we having sex or were we not? It was about this soul contract that had gotten created when we came together, and probably got created before we even were born. And we got to like feel that. We got to feel the tension when we pulled apart, and we felt that cord between us, and was like, oh, there's this thing here. And when you're in the midst of your relationship and you're going through your day to day, maybe you don't feel that. It's just too familiar. It's too right there. But when we started pulling apart, we were dating other people, falling in love with other people. We could feel that cord, and we're like, what is this? What do we do with this? And eventually I feel like that brought us back together. That kind of had some elasticity in it and then pulled back together. And then there was a phase of like, okay, well, now what do we do? But that's a whole other story. But yeah, like that, my soul, I now have the language for, like, my soul was like, yeah, it doesn't matter if she wants to not be married to you. Like, you do you. What feels good to you? What feels right? What feels healing and supportive and nourishing for you? How do you want to show up? That's where you're going to get your power and your clarity from and be walking your path. And that made all the difference for me, and ultimately made a huge difference for us.
Welcome, love. If you're feeling the pull to remember your power, soften your body, and return to your truth, I invite you into my world of healing arts and transformational coaching. I'm Awa Wild, intuitive guide, energy medicine woman, and creator of sensuous revival healing arts. I help individuals and couples release old patterns, dissolve shame, reconnect with pleasure, and rise into a more liberated life. Through sacred pelvic healing, somatic practices, intuitive body talk, and emotional integration, you'll learn to listen to your body, trust your intuition, and create relationships that feel nourishing and aligned. Whether you work with me one-on-one, join a retreat, or step into my online program, You'll receive an experience of deep presence, compassionate guidance, and practices that create lasting change. If your soul is ready for more freedom, more pleasure, and deeper truth, I'm here. Learn more at sensuousrevival.com or reach out directly to begin your journey.
Yeah, a moment ago you had mentioned getting away from social norms in relationships, and I think that example is a beautiful one, right? Like, hey, one person says, hey, I think I'm done with this relationship, and Jared, like, okay, well, let's look at this a different perspective, right? Like, this is a way that we can still care for one another outside of a social like agreement that we have, because we might not be whatever married, but I still want to honor the commitment I made to you. And that's a huge thing for anybody. And one, to receive that still and be like, okay, Laurie, yeah, I will still receive that from you, Jared, rather than, no, I want you out of my life, you stalker, get the fuck away from me. Right. But Jared also, like, hey, I've seen your rejection theoretically, and I'm going to still show up because this is how I feel good. So it's like, that was such a big step in my eyes of saying, okay, social norms, get fucked, right? Yeah. We're going to do this our own way, which leads now to the opening of doors of other ways to show up for each other, to invite other people in our lives in intimate ways and non-intimate ways, and whatever the support that needs to be there for the lastingness of the love. And I think that's what really boils down to it. Right? How can we best support ourselves so that we can show up for each other in their hero's journey, because we want somebody to show up for us in our hero's journey. Right. And so, like, how can I take my Jared as Frodo's hat off and be Jared Samwise? Can I be Jared Gandalf? Right. How can I show up for Laurie in the best way that I can and not always just have to be the one that carries her everywhere? And that just opens up our hearts to anything that can be new. Right.
Every time he does these references, I'm like, shit, I still got to go back and watch those movies.
Oh my God. Let me start dropping the star. Hey, I can reference Star Wars. We got Harry Potter. Yeah. I got all kinds of shit idea. I can reference.
I am really glad you went Tolkien on that, because I, like, just for listeners listening, as you said that, Adam, like, yeah, I was not. I like wanted Jared to be my best friend still. And that's part of probably the hardness of what that time in our life was. Is like, yeah, no, I still want all this closeness and intimacy, still be my Samwise, but also like not in this way anymore. So those boxes that you're talking about, like, yeah, I think it's really relevant, including that what was kind of at the source of all of the chaos in our relationship at that time is we had opened our marriage about a year prior to all of this, and we had been dating other people, and like I just could not. I was so stuck. I think I was so stuck in the social box of monogamy that I just could not figure out how to be in love with this woman I was falling madly in love with, and still do what Jared and I were doing. It's just like my brain just could not compute. So I think those boxes that you're talking about, they really. It's one of the things that had me fall in love with Jared, is he's always like, well, who created this? And why is this like this? Let's talk about the edges.
So silly.
Yeah.
That's so silly.
Exactly.
It's so uncomfortable and also such a gift.
Well, and I'm sitting here thinking like, fuck, when are we going to release this episode? And maybe we delete this segment, but my heart is like really struggling to not like break down in this moment because of where I'm at in my marriage. And I'm hearing this, and it's like the voice in my head's like, no, don't give me any hope. Like, I just got clear on where I am. And then I hear this and I'm like, oh, fuck, okay. And, Jared's been huge in my world of working through a lot of the similar things that you two are referring to. And just the two of you as a beacon of what is possible. Like, it's been so inspiring. And yet, like, where I'm sitting right now, like, I can, like, my chest is literally like, I feel like an elephant sat down and just like took a shit. But also what I'm hearing, and, again, we might just cut this part of the podcast out. I don't know. We'll talk about it later. But is that you both wanted that growth together. You didn't know what it was going to look like. It was definitely outside of social norms, but that you were both doing your individual work and you were both coming back to the table. And it maybe was initiated through what felt like a deep tear. But I think that like, this is literally why I want to do this podcast, is because it's helping people understand that, for one, normal is a myth, and that most of us in long lasting, or not even long lasting, but like potent dynamics of relating are going, like, there's so many people going through this, right? And I've seen a lot of stuff coming up online for me lately. And I don't always agree with some of the way that it's expressed, but, particularly women's voices who are now speaking up about some of the arguments that people will present around monogamy or long-term relationships. And they'll be like, look at our grandparents, right? That's one argument. And now this other voice is coming back and saying, our grandmothers didn't stay because they were happy.
Right.
They didn't stay because they felt fulfilled or met or honored. They stayed because they were stuck.
Yeah, they have a choice.
Right. And
The skills were taken away, the income was taken away, the rights were taken away. Fuck, my mom, she was 69 when she died, had to have my fucking dad co-sign for a credit card back in the 80s, late 80s, for her to get a credit card. And I'm like, she told me that maybe a month or two before she died. And I'm like, what? I didn't know that was still happening in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. So, like, to hear the two of you, I think what's inspiring that I can really tap into is the presence that you both individually had with yourselves to notice that there was a tether, energetically, emotionally, soully, that kept you connected even through those periods of times of moving away, and that it was within you and without you to come back together. And to, be here now, what, like 8 years later? 10 years later?
I guess 9 years later from getting back together. I don't know.
Yeah, wrapping up the year 9. So, like, I just had a coffee date this morning. We were talking about all the shit that we were going through 9-10 years ago, and like the transformation that has happened, and like all of the dying and the rebirthing.
So 10 years ago, when you were going through this, did you think that you would be in a place to, one, be okay with where you're at, still being together, or two, being teachers of this stuff now? Right? It's such an odd thing to think of, like the trauma, the dramatics of like going through this idea of like identifying what a soul's relationship is, making room for, hey, get out of here. No, I'm going to still show up. Like all of this, like the quote unquote chaos of it, to now be guides holding space for people, being like an example of like, hey, this can work. This is an honesty. This is a way to pivot. This is a way that you can be, in love with each other in a very deep way. Whereas, decade ago it was chaos, right? It's such an interesting dichotomy to follow that path. So did you think that you would be in this teaching space of this, or even here sitting next to Jared and Laurie in the first place?
Well, you say teacher, and I go, ugh.
I know, right?
Because I mean, I think I'm definitely a tracker of all of this, and I am a facilitator and a guide and a coach in my life and in many different spaces. But when it comes to this, it's like I feel like it's back to how Jared and I were at the beginning of our relationship. We just knew there was something. And whether it be through good communication or shared values or whatever we would have called it back then, we just really like continued to meet each other and discover. And now I feel like it's more like tracker. We're tracking this in our own relationship, and then because of the work that we do in the world in other ways, like we have the opportunity to maybe have us be mirrors for other people's journeys and experiences. So I know that's kind of like, I just went on a little bit of a like semantics thing, but like I really think we're trackers of it, and space holders for like a lot of messiness. That's what comes up for me when you say that. And to answer your question, no. I mean, when Jared and I first met, I was just like, whoa, this is weird. He's tall
And a dude.
and a dude. He's got hair on his chest. Like, what's happening in my life? And I had a dream about 6 months before I met him. I was on a cruise ship with my mom, a country music cruise ship.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, it was a blast.
Yeah.
And I woke up one morning after having had a dream of like nuzzling into a man's hairy chest. It was like clearly romantic. And I was like, wow, that is weird. And then I just, didn't think anything of it. And then 6 months later, Jared came along.
Well, and it might be helpful for the audience to know that previous to Jared, you mostly dated women, correct?
Yeah. I had some boyfriends in high school, but mostly after I came out, I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
dude, who?
Right. Yeah. How was that for you, Jared? Did you have any foresight to this eventually becoming a strength and a position that you would eventually support other people in?
I don't think so. Not at that time. I think, as I named in something I was sharing earlier, like that first 2 years really of us coming back together was rocky. It was, we constantly were like, okay, we're probably breaking back up again, right? We just kept running into stuff that was like, we're not a great match to be in a romantic partnership. Like, we kept asking each other, like, are we just best friends? Are we complicating everything by trying to be in a romantic relationship, trying to be married?
Are we just not erotically compatible?
Yeah. It's just like, what is going on here? And we eventually moved through that space and out of that space. But yeah, there was a period of like after the rupture, there was like a lot of repair and like sifting through things and feeling into things and banging into walls together and like, what are we doing here? Yeah, and so yeah, there wasn't a clear like, oh yeah, someday we're gonna really utilize this experience and the wisdom we've gleaned to make a difference for people and couples around the world. It was like, are we going to be together next month? Should we be preparing to divorce and move apart again?
Who gets the dog?
Oh my God. That's always the question.
It was very up in the air. But something else I want to bring into the conversation, I've been kind of sensing it looping around in some of the different things we've been saying, is like the value of humility and understanding that it's just not up to us. Like there's only so much of life and relationship and other people that we have any say in. And I think the whole process, the whole relationship since Laurie and I first met has just been a continual series of opportunities to humble myself and to realize I'm not in control. And then developing another skill set, another muscle, which is listening. Like Laurie used the word tracking. Like the questions we kept asking ourselves in that period after coming back together were questions. They weren't, I want this or it should be this way. It was, what wants to happen here? Like clearly something brought us back together. Something originally had us meet. Like it hasn't been us. We've been at the whim of these bigger machinations and seasons and movements of the world. And we're just along for the ride. Our job's just to try and make some sense of it and to harvest what we can so that we're oriented enough to keep going. And that continues to be true every day. We're constantly asking ourselves questions of like, okay, why do our wounds punch each other in these ways? Like, what is there for us to glean from that? Because I'm not in control of my love for Laurie. I never will be. I'll never want to leave her ever.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that she won't do things that will drive me up the wall or cause me extreme pain. And so what I'm left with is like surrender. Like, okay, we're doing this for better, for worse, for ugly, for dirty, for funny, for all the things. And so what's happening here? What am I being asked of? What am I being invited into? What's the opportunity? What's the possibility? So in that way, sure, I saw that there was something that could be gleaned from all of this happening with us. And maybe someday I saw maybe a glimmer of like, oh, we could make a difference with this. Again, when we first came together, one of the core like intentions of our relationship was like, let's have our relationship be something that makes a difference for others. Let's live our lives as examples of what's possible. And that was a foundation that continued through all of this. But yeah, seeing where we are now, no, I don't think I could have seen that at the time.
Yeah. Now, I think I know the answer, or I know where my head's at with just the way that you guys have been speaking about this. But there's a thing in the back of my head that if I don't follow this question or think about it real deeply, it could be, well, why do you keep putting yourself back in the fire? Right now, there's the idea of like, we're going to work on this and we're going to try to get better about this. And then there's the idea of like, I'm just going to keep putting myself in this traumatic situation because I don't know any different. And there's a subtle difference between that. And I think that what it's really coming down to with you guys and the way I'm hearing you guys talk is the fact that you talk to each other, you have hard conversations. It's not just like, oh, we'll figure this out later. It's like, no, hey, guess what? I don't want you in my life. Hey, guess what? I'm going to still be in your life. So we're going to have to fucking figure this out. But it's that honesty and that inability or non-desire to turn away from the nastiness of it, the potential nastiness, I should say, because if you talk about it, it's not nasty anymore. It's not a hidden secret. It's not this weird thing that goes unsaid. It's like, no, we've spoken about the thing. It's not in a corner anymore. There's a fucking light on that thing, and that open communication allows that opportunity to say like, hey, honestly, I don't think this is working anymore. Or honestly, this is going to be tough, but I think we got this, And I think that's one of those things that not a lot of us are really coached on, is how to have those tough conversations. Look at somebody in the eye when you're pissed at them. Why didn't you put the fucking dishes back in? Why are they in the dishwasher? Why aren't they in the cabinet? They're clean. Why isn't anybody putting them, in these conversations that seem petty, but are like the brickwork of the solid foundation of what needs to happen so we can grow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did let Jared know that this morning he didn't clean the crock pot fully.
Wagging the finger.
Adam.
Which, it's so funny because I think that I just had an experience. Patrick and I agreed that we weren't going to purchase Christmas presents for each other because we just went to Mexico and that was a lot of money. And the fucker bought me an Apple Watch and a bird feeder that has a video camera on it.
Oh, Bird Buddy?
A Bird Buddy.
I love those things.
I'm so excited. And I'm also excited about my watch because I don't know, like I've just wanted one and I use it for work and all the things, right? Mm-hmm. Although it's going off all the time now and I don't know how to make it stop doing that. So I have to watch a tutorial. But it's more importantly than the crock pot not being fully cleaned out or him purchasing the gifts. Underneath that is like, do you understand what I desire, why I desire it, and are you hearing me, right? Like my conflict about him buying me gifts is bittersweet because I'm excited about what I got. I tossed him a pair of socks across the bed when we were wrapping presents, and I was like, Merry Christmas, mostly as a joke because we weren't supposed to be buying each other anything. And so it's do you understand why this is a trigger for me? And are you willing to help show up? And then are you willing to hear me maybe wag my finger at you and not like let it bother you at all? Just like, water off the duck's back, right? Mm-hmm. And I heard Laurie share earlier in our conversation that, you have wounding around the idea of abandonment. I'm wondering, you guys have talked about how you perfectly trigger and hit each other's buttons in that way. So like, how is that mirrored in the relationship? Like what are Jared's sensitive points and how do you support each other in that? Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before we answer specifically about that, which I'd love to talk about, the piece about just going back to what you said to Adam around like, yeah, we talk about the hard things. And communication, and that was, for better or for worse, really drilled into us from the world that we came to. Like everything can be resolved in communication, which I don't know that I honestly believe anymore, but that's beside the point. Like communication. And even if it's about, the crock pot or the tea bag in the sink. And we also laugh a lot. We laugh a lot about the way we trigger each other, which is so fucking helpful. Like if I can't access like the fool or like that laughing energy, then I know we're in trouble. And that's when we get into our wounds, it's way harder to access that stuff, like a tea bag or a crock pot. All of our practice with that, I think, like rep after rep after rep, has led us to be able to, even in the really, really sticky stuff or the really, really heated stuff, recognize, the kind of like the mechanism of upset that is happening, or like the uniqueness of why that would hurt. And we are really good at slowing down and listening to each other, even if it sometimes takes days or weeks, to work with some of the sticky stuff like abandonment or too muchness or so I just wanted to highlight that piece about like the communication about the little things does make a difference in communication about the big things. And then how on earth do we answer Awa's question about?
Well, and I want to say too, to reflect on that, because I love that you picked that back up. That was beautiful. Communication happens beyond words, right? And what I hear, what I think you're saying in that regard is that the world in which you both came from, it was communication through words. And so how do we speak nonverbal language with each other and be sensitive enough to ourselves and each other to hear what's being said without always having to use a million words?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd add to that too. Like it's more than just having words and communicating. It's the bigger toolkit of navigating rupture and repair. Because it's constantly with us all the time. And like Laurie's used the phrase like reps, doing the rep, rep, like, and the little things help you build the muscles for the big things. And, but like we're constantly practicing mastery in rupture and repair constantly. And we get more and more comfortable with it every time we do it, so that we can be in like the most heated, scary, like gnarly, toothy stuff. And there's this toolkit that just shows up, and there's this like nervous system regulation that we've just developed, that we can just sit in the fire of that and be like, I'm okay, you're okay, we can navigate this. And we don't know where it's going to go. We don't know where we're going to end up. But it's like we have what we need to find our way through this. We have the map, we have the compass, the whatever to find our way along this path. And that, I feel like that is one of the things that continually find when we work with couples, when we support friends, we talk to other people in our lives. Like that's just no one teaches that. There's or very few places teach that. Maybe you can find it in certain like mediation or like certain places, but it's always professionally oriented. It's so rare to find really good, really actionable skill set around navigating rupture and repair, and nervous system regulation when it comes to being in conflict with your partner. So.
Or you can find a bunch of frameworks in a bunch of different places, but then it's like way different than actually being attuned to yourself and your partner and navigating that. Like that it just takes practice.
Yeah. And guidance. Laurie and I also have always valued and invested in having coaches and mentors, support, and taking programs. And it's part of our professional path. But like we almost always have at least one coach we're working with on a regular basis that we can go to and be like, hey, this thing happened with my partner and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And then they help us like go, okay, let's take a breath.
Yes. Neutral party.
Or are you being a jerk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people to say like that, like, wow, that's yours, Laurie.
Yeah.
That sounds like yours. Like that's you might want to look in the mirror on that one.
Yeah.
Favorite moments.
You guys, we started off talking about soul partnerships and soul relationships, and there's a very cultural way of looking at that, even though you beautifully defined it. And that cultural way in the West would probably still, for the majority, say it's one person. And having, we talked about open relationship earlier, opening your relationship up, and then also going through the tough times, right? And not to say they're over, right? We always got some shit we're working on, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. Do you think that keeping the relationship, well, actually, I get clarity first. Did you keep the relationship open while you were still working on you guys as a couple? Was it still an open relationship, or did it like you guys work on you guys and then go back into opening it back up?
Kind of both, but more the latter.
Okay.
So when Jared and I got back together, he said, like, I don't know that I can just go to being monogamous with you from where we've been.
Mm-hmm.
And
I said I couldn't.
yeah, right. And I heard, that's a suggestion. And so I was like, all right, sure, but not yet. And then the not yet became the point of contention.
Gotcha.
And so we did take a pause, and we were working with a therapist, and I wisely so realize now that, like, at the time my system was wise. It was telling me, like, you need a number of things to be able to come back into connection with this, and you need to go slow, and you need to work with these parts that are, telling you this, that, and the other thing. And that was true. And then there became a point where Jared's needs and my needs weren't meshing. And we're like, are we going to do this? And we're like, yes, we are. Okay. And now we're going to open. And then the whole thing. So it was like, it was this real dance between both of those worlds to find ourselves where we are now.
Yeah. Do you find that decision and just being where you guys are at now, do you think that well, it sounds like you guys are very strong in your communication and the way you show up for each other. And hindsight is always, one of our biggest gifts, because we can look back and string together a narrative. But, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. But do you feel like just having some hindsight, looking back at you guys and saying, like, hey, that was I think that was a good decision to make, moving forward in this way, and still staying true to the values of what you guys individually want, and then also want as that couple?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think there was wisdom in funneling all of our erotic and romantic energy to each other for a period of time, and not having that leak into other people. And because we needed it, we needed all we could get in that period. There was a lot of questions and a lot of frustration and, like, not understanding and what's going on. Why don't we fit together in certain ways?
There's also a lot of lack of clarity in, like, what we actually desired and what it could look like. Again, back to that box. And yeah, there was, like, confusion and harm, not just with each other, but with other people we were connected to. And
Yeah.
we sometimes review some of the stories of, like, the things we've done or said or choices we've made. And we're like, wow,
Yeah.
what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah, we go through this whole new round of, like, I'm really sorry
Yeah.
about that. Like, I know we've already, like, gone through that and apologized and, like, put it to bed, but, like, again, like,
Yeah.
sorry, that
Yeah.
was really shitty of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and continue with that healthiness that you guys are cultivating and continue to move on with. Like, what are some of the practices you currently have that help you keep that honesty with each other, that strength with each other, having, and I'll say non-traditional as just a trope, it's not non-traditional. Who fucking knows what traditional is, right? In a Western non-traditional relationship where you have more than just one person in your life that you're intimate with, that, asked me that 10 years ago, I'd had an opinion about it that probably wouldn't be worth listening to on this podcast, but have a very, very different understanding about it. And not only being, adjacent to people in those relationships, but also just seeing the benefit of opening yourself up to receiving love from multiple people and not putting the pressure, whether realized or not, on your spouse to be everything in your life. There's a lot of pressure in that nobody wants to show up for. So so what are some of the practices that you guys have as you continue to move through life and continue to strengthen this beautiful relationship you guys have?
Well, I definitely feel open to sharing those, with the caveat that these are ours.
Yeah.
Which I know you're asking, but, like, I feel like this is a pitfall I can get into sometimes, is, like, how other people do it, or comparing, or, oh, I should, or, I should be better, or I should not need this, or whatever. So I just want to kind of name that as we're about to name some of these practices. But the first thing that pops up for me, I mean, two things. One is clear agreements, which, again, is not always the case for people. But for me, and again, some of the stuff of my childhood and, like, the fears that come up in me and what my nervous system needs, like, I need clear agreements.
Will you
So
give
we have
an
a-
example of what one of those may be? Just
Yeah,
'cause
like,
I
physically.
understand what agreements mean to me, but maybe some of our listeners are like, what does that mean?
Yeah, like, Jared and I, it's up on a piece of paper. It's not actually, because it's on the computer, but, and it's like,
Google.
it's in writing and we can see it, and we, like, shore ourselves up to that. Like, we review them together occasionally, but it's a written agreement words that like we've both looked at and we're like, yeah, this feels good. This makes sense. This is at what point we need to be in communication with each other. This is like, how to loop each other in specifically for how Jared wants to know about, if I'm starting to feel something with someone, or what I need if he's starting to feel that. Like just all the details along the way, which again, some people, they don't need that. And that's, I can't imagine what it's like to be not need that, but I need that.
Yep.
So that's one. And the other thing I was going to say was core routines, which you can talk about, like our core relationship routines. We've got some ones that have been going strong for a couple of years now.
I mean, you created most of them. I think you should share them. It's one of your beautiful gifts.
Yeah, we get really serious about honoring our calendars with each other. We have a date night, which is usually Mexican food and a margarita. But then on Fridays, we have this tradition that it's started with a meal and like time to reach for the beloved, including each other. But it's now morphed into we're big music people. So like every Friday, and we move it if something gets in the way, we have a meal together and we listen to an album.
Like a showcase.
And yeah, like a showcase album, like start to finish, out on the music, talk to each other about it, rub each other's backs while we're doing it, dance together, and then usually, put the album on repeat and move into erotic space. So it's like we don't, yeah, it's really, I think 5 years now, so going on 6 years that we've been doing that. And I think it's critical to the aliveness and health of our connection.
Yeah. Well, I love how you prefaced it by saying, these are our practices, and I think we do get caught up a lot, especially in this kind of fast-paced world we live in. There's an optimization idea, like tell me how many calories I need to eat and how many steps I need to take and how many hours of sleep and all this shit, right? And a lot of that stuff I feel is really convoluted, but can be good starting points, right? As long as you know that it's a starting point, right? So the thing that you just shared, Laurie, about how you guys dance and share an album, which, I mean, the dancing and the loving aside, the fact that you listen to an album from front to back is fucking amazing.
Right.
I love that. That's one of my favorite things.
So fun.
Oh my God. Finding albums you can listen to front to back are my favorite things, right? You really learn how to listen to music when you have to listen to that song you don't really know if you like or not, but it's on an album. So you just keep listening to it and eventually figure it out. Yeah. But, like having these jumping off points to say like, okay, hey, that's a great example of something that works for this couple that I've gotten something from. And so that can be what I start with. And then I say, oh, you know what? I don't like back rubs. I'd rather have like a water fight, right? That's great. We're still listening to music. We're still together. Okay. And now the music starts to go and then now we're listening to a movie, right? But there's that idea that was planted to be like, oh, that's a good way to start, right? And now that we've adopted it, now we can make it our own in our own ways. Mm-hmm. But I think that is a lesson that should be expanded through all of life. Like from the food that we eat as a youngster and we grew up with and be like, oh, I just eat pizza all the time. When was the last time you checked in if you like pizza? Do you get the shits after you eat pizza? Maybe you don't know you shouldn't have cheese. Maybe you should switch to a different type, but like, no, I'm just used to eating pizza all the time. So that's just what I do.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, Laurie. I didn't mean to go on that, Lactose intolerance is the thing, folks.
Yeah.
But but it is. It's that courage to check in with the self and to potentially have these conversations of like, oh, that's what you mean by that? That's not what I meant by that. Like jealousy and envy, that's two different things for me. Oh, that's the same thing for you. Okay, cool. Like that's a good thing to know. Now we can talk about that stuff.
Yeah. So much talking.
Yeah.
Now, and I love that statement too, because does it seem like it gets a little like monotonous? Like, oh, fuck, here we go. A conversation about life again. Like, oh, I guess we're, because and they're always good. But sometimes in that moment, it's like, fuck, I guess we're doing this again, huh? Does it ever get like repetitive? Is there like this, okay, we're breaking out the notes again and we're going to get flashcards out. And
I don't think it gets monotonous or repetitive because it's always like I'm a drama queen. I love it. And there are times when I ask Jared, I'm like, if we weren't doing this, like, what could I have done with my time? Like, I probably could have written a screenplay already. But like, and I don't say that with resentment. I think I used to say that with resentment, like, oh my gosh, this takes so much effort, and just so much care, I think is a better word. But it's always feeding, again, back to the soul partnership, like the reflections and the dance between us is always feeding those other things in my life, whether it be my one-on-one work with clients or my creative self or my dreams or my friendships. And so when I look at it, when I see it from that full perspective, it's a no-brainer to me.
What this reminds me of too, I see your mouth moving, Jared. I do want to hear your voice. So I'll just throw this in and then you can share. While you were sharing what did you call them? The weekly
routines.
things, your core
Oh yeah,
routines.
core
Yeah.
relationship routines. Yeah.
I kept thinking, what the fuck? What do people do that have kids? And like the more I listened, I was thinking, ritualize with your children and make those core routines, right? Like, my husband just shared a video with me about some studies that were done, of course, not here in the US, somewhere where they studied families that had one routine, essentially, that they did with their children each week, and the incredible relief that these children had from anxiety and depression. And it was literally like Friday evening, we all have dinner together, right? It was just one thing that they promised to each other every week, and how much it reduced the sense of angst in these people. And so, yeah, anyway, as I was listening, I was, of course, at first like, oh, how am I going to do that in my life when I have, these little people that I have to keep alive? And they're not really little. They're all bigger than me now and quite sustainable. But it's still that programming, that routine that I've been in for a long time. And so I really can appreciate me getting over my pattern of excusing my big commitments to myself by a lack of time when I know that that's not true. Because I certainly have time to be on social media or watching horrible Netflix television because I can't eat potato chips and pizza. So anyway.
Yeah, and that's perfect that you shared that, because that's where I'm wanting to go. Is, Lori talked about these are our routines, and what we have discovered and created in those routines is reflective of our like relational soul connection. Like there's that third energy that arises in our partnership. Our relationship has its own soul, and it wants to be nourished in certain ways. And we've discovered that those Friday night evenings where we connect with our beloved, where we really appreciate art and music and things like that really feeds our like relational soul. Getting on the river and canoeing and appreciating the natural world, like feeds that soul of us. And so that's where, like when Lori said, like, oh, our life doesn't work when we're not on rivers together. That's what that means, is like our relational soul is not nourished. And so what I want to underline for people listening to this is, yeah, rather than taking these routines that we're describing and trying them on, which you're welcome to, they're beautiful.
Definitely listen to albums.
Definitely listen to albums, but like get curious about what your own relational soul needs. What nourishes it? And Awa, you just described beautifully, like you're tapped into what your family needs, and there's these natural ways it's already occurred. There's ways you come together and spend time together and do certain activities together that nourish that familial soul. And so I think that's a really, it's not as easy. It's not like step one, do this, step two, do this. It's like, no, get really curious and have conversations with your partner or with your family about like what helps us all individually feel nourished. Where is there overlap? When are the times we have the most fun together, or we feel the most satisfied or fulfilled? Like what charges our battery the most when we're together? And then create some activities around that, create things you can do together around that. And then from there, you're creating core routines. You're creating things. Then you just schedule it in your calendar and you make sure you do it. Make it high priority.
It's a great whiteboard exercise. You can see the Venn diagrams as he's talking. You know?
I know. I was like, this needs to be a worksheet.
Yeah.
This is totally a worksheetable situation here.
Oh man, yeah, it's the idea of like surviving to thriving, right? You know, it's that holding on to holding with, right? So you've been holding on in that 10 years ago in that little space, and now it's like you've graduated to holding with each other.
Oh, that's cool. I don't think I've ever heard that holding on to holding with.
Yeah, and
Thanks for that.
it allows things to just kind of like show themselves to you guys as a couple, and then show you like, okay, this is information. What do we want to do with this? You know, does this even fit with us? Do we need to even let this in? Or now that it is here, how do we work with it? Right? There's like all these tools in our toolbox that we can play with, but you know, is it a tool that your culture has said you couldn't play with? Because maybe you should look at that tool again, you know, because cultures have their reasons for their things, but you're an individual. And just like we talked about the practices earlier, does that practice actually land with you as the individual, you know, and does that actually resonate with you? Because there's a lot of people out here now that we can access that can support you in different ways that you might not feel alienated if you do feel alienated.
Yeah, and hearing that, it brings me back to, I think Jared said it a couple of times in some of the sharing, is nervous system regulation.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like, I am not going to try a tool that threatens my position and my sense of safety if I don't have that ability to regulate. And you said, was it rupture and repair? Mastery of rupture and repair. My generator brain was like, that needs to be a program. We'll talk about that later. Because that's one of the things that I see in our culture that is heartbreaking for me, is the lack of resilience. And so I am curious, both of you had, you know, your training that you came through, and then you've done wilderness work. Like, I would love to hear kind of like the roots maybe of where you both came from and that resilience, because a lot of people don't currently embody that like perseverance that I think a lot of us latchkey kids grew up, right? Like, we were all feral. We didn't have, there was no helicopter parents of our generation, right? So like, yeah, just speaking to that as you are individually, and then also this third entity as of the relationship and how that's benefited from it.
I was about to start talking about Presbyterianism, so maybe you should start.
All right, we'll get to that.
Over to you, Jared.
I would. I love how you pulled that together, because yes, resilience is critical, and where my mind goes to, like, what we've gotten from the nature connection work we've done and education we received, is a lot of it is like this awakening to how insulated we all are as modern humans. We live in this world that is designed for us. We've designed a world with lines and edges and comfy plush rugs and clothes that keep us perfectly, you know, at the right temperature and temperature control and all these things, so that we don't ever have to feel very uncomfortable. And then the trade-off is then we're not in relationship with what's going on around us. We're insulated. And so the nature connection movement and education and programs are all about helping you, again, back to nervous system regulation, like slowly step out of all of that insulation and start tuning in to what's happening around you, what's happening seasonally. What temperature actually is it? And what does that actually feel like in your body if you don't go outside with a hat and gloves and a jacket and, you know, $400 boots with fur lining? Like, what if you just went outside barefoot and got cold for a minute? What is that like? And you get so much more information about yourself, about the world around you, and you start to take on a practice of you renegotiate your relationship to comfort. You start to like in my experience, I'll speak for myself, is like I started to get excited for opportunities to get uncomfortable in healthy ways. Like there was when I was
Intentional.
doing the 9-month program we were coming through, there was an opportunity to go for a 3-day walkabout survival trip where like just with a knife and maybe a couple of like protein bars, we were going to go out for 3 days and harvest our own food, create our own shelter, sleep, figure out how to make fire without fire making materials, like just go for it. And the person who was presenting it was like, and it's like it's an opportunity to get really uncomfortable. And because you're uncomfortable, you're going to learn a lot. And I just like something in me lit up, like, yeah, that. And then I get out there and I'm like, why did I do this? This is not fun at all. I'm barely sleeping and I'm cold all the time. But it's so valuable. It's such medicine to get that uncomfortable, because I also like had the experience of harvesting food for the first time, had the experience of harvesting food for my people. And bring it. I caught a bunch of fish, like hand line caught fish, cleaned them out. Like for the first, I'd fished a little bit as a kid, but otherwise I'd never really done anything like that. But like cleaned them out, prepared them. We ended up, everyone was harvesting for, half the day. We brought everything back. We had brought like one pot and we filled it with water. We boiled the water to purify it. We put all that stuff in it and we made a stew. And then we passed the stew around the fire and we all were nourished by all of that work. Like, I can't describe what that feels like. Yeah. It's so powerful and liberating and deeply connective to the world around me. It's like, oh, this landscape I'm now living on for a period of time is nourishing me. I have this landscape now in my body, and the work, the perspiration, the frustration I've gone through all day is now nourishing my body and my people's body, these other people around me, and their work is nourishing me. Like, words can't describe that, but it is deeply transformational. And the resilience that creates, the intimacy that creates with human and beyond human, with self and other, is invaluable. And you bring that into a relational context, like being in a marriage, and we are not afraid of rupture because we have developed these practices, these muscles, this comfort level with being uncomfortable, that when we get into those sticky situations together where it's like, it gets a little scarier, like, ooh, are we going to be okay? Am I okay? Are you okay? We're not freaked out. We don't bail out on those conversations. We might need to take a pause, but we do that with the knowledge of like, I'm okay, you're okay, but I also know my nervous system needs this right now. Let's come back together in an hour. I need to go journal for a bit, or I need to meditate, or I need to call, a friend and kind of talk this through with them, or whatever that is, and we can come back. And so we've removed a lot of the insulation around us so that we can be more connected and more intimate together, and feel comfortable navigating things that are uncomfortable for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Which is also back to your question earlier, Adam, about like, does it get, I forget how you framed it, but like the thin line between like, this is actually healing versus this discomfort is healing versus like, you're just the kid picking up the sketch. I definitely did. I also was sleeping by a wood stove when Jared was off on the story he just told you all, because I did not lean into discomfort. I resisted the entire time, which also says a lot about kind of our relationship. And like, I've gotten better with the discomfort, but I have gone kicking and screaming quite a bit. And I think it's again back to that reps of just like, okay, I trust this process now. But it's still a mess at times. Like a couple weeks ago, I kicked over a canoe, and that really hurt Jared's feelings, and he had to say that to me, which I was very proud to receive. It was very clear, you hurt my feelings, and that was a direct result of I was so uncomfortable with feeling what I was feeling. Like, you know what? You know who's going to feel this now? This canoe. This canoe that represents all that is good in my relationship with Jared. And I'm going to do it right as he's watching me walk away. Some of us do it resistantly, I think is my point.
What I hear
It's
through
comfort.
all of that too, though, is confidence because of the repetition. And it doesn't come without, for some of us, a giant leap of faith. right? And my curiosity from that then is you have this together and you have built over a long period of time a beautiful trust that you can face these things together. Is that mirrored in your other relationships outside the marriage? Do you feel that at all with other people?
I have.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's different. Like Lori and I have the benefit of many years together and doing, like, we have the same, a lot of the same training and vernacular and understanding. We have the same tools. It's like we've been trained in a lot of the same ways. We have the same tools. We know we use them in similar ways. So there's a film. We're both deeply committed to our soul and developing ourselves and growing and healing. Not everyone is as that's not as big of a deal for as many people. So yeah, I would say the degree to which I experience that with other people in my life is also the degree to which they have a deep commitment to their own journey and healing and growth, and have enough similar vocabulary and understanding that we can communicate and find common ground. That honestly, that one's less of a concern, but it's more like, yeah, some people just are up to other things. They have different karma in this life, and they're not interested in hashing it out and doing all the deep healing work and, pulling it all out.
And then this has been a challenge in my life of like, I'm the like, I want to love everyone I've ever loved forever. And when it's clear that like, oh, this actually isn't healthy. This actually isn't, we're probably doing more harm here. Like how to really
Scab
be like,
picking.
it's okay. What'd you say, Owen?
I said scab picking.
Yes, exactly. I guess that is connected. Yes. And so, yeah, and just being able to be real with myself about what I feel this is or isn't, and somehow that's all connected in there too. And I think we've both been really blessed by being met by people outside of our marriage that we've connected with that have really have been those mirrors and not afraid to be like, yeah, hold something up to me, and which is again kind of like a key part of this soul partnership. And even if it's not a soul partnership with that person, it's just like a depth of intimacy and reflection that again gives me more of myself. And it's like I can think of some of the people that I'm going through right now. I'm like, oh wow, where would I be if she had not said that to me? And so just trusting that, I think that's a huge part of entering into any kind of intimacy with someone else. And of course we all have our lessons.
Yep. Well, I think the way you guys speak and the practices you're sharing, this is all basically like really testing trust. Like I've put me on the table, right? This is me. This is my wants, my desires, my loves. Hopefully the person that I'm putting that on the table with can at least accept it, if not reciprocate it, hold that nice and safe so that I don't feel like I've been abandoned, I've been traumatized, now it's ammo, everything about me kind of shit. So there's that lesson in trust of like, okay, I'm putting myself out there, and then that trust is received. Okay, cool. So, and now we put our trust out there to something else, and then that trust is received. So it's like it's building that muscle to know that if I'm honest, at least I'm being received or not received for the honesty that I am. And I'm not trying to play this role anymore. Right. And that role might be outside of what a lot of people might consider as normal, but you will find those people that accept that trust. And then that knowledge of self gets so much stronger, and it can just like throw away all those other pessimistic things that we just think about that never come true. But because we think about them, we think they're always true. And we have this now bank of actual physical data that we've put ourselves out there. We've tested trust, and we've been reciprocated with trust and love. And that just makes us stronger to go forward, and then to continue to do this work for you guys to help other people find that love and trust within themselves, So are there practices that you're working with currently that maybe you and, Jared and Laurie, just as you two as a couple, are working on, that eventually it's like, oh no, this is definitely something I'm going to bring into my practice with people around us, because this has been so beneficial, or I can see as we work through this, the benefit of this practice that can be something that we bring out to our people in our lives.
I have some ideas.
I was gonna go beloved.
Yeah, that's great. Beloved's always the answer.
Always. Just finished
Well,
it.
I don't know. I have tons to say about it, so you can jump in anytime. But just like I know it, back to the soul dates, the artist dates, the beloved dates, different ways I've defined them over the years. Thank you, Julia Cameron, for introducing me to the idea. But yeah, it's like the more that I fulfill, this is coming up a lot in my client work, which is why I thought of it when you said it, Adam. It's like I've been on this terrain now that I'm starting to recognize that pattern in people, where it's like there's this deep longing for union with beloved. And if I'm projecting that only onto Jared, yeah, just the trouble that gets me in. So really encouraging that practice of, courting the inner beloved, and yeah, being with yourself in that way, in that energy, and letting yourself be fed by you, and then bringing that back to your relationship. And it's been so clutch for me. And yeah, again, I feel like it's showing up in people around me too. And it's like, it's like when you buy a red car and then you see a red car, I just see it everywhere. And I'm just like sending people books and things. I'm like, read this, listen to this.
I'm
Tell me
like,
what you
wait, is there another book? Because I just finished The World is Awaiting a Lover.
Nice.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
that's
was
one of them.
so
Yeah.
sad to like finish it. I'm like, okay, I actually was thinking we should start a book club, because I want to go through it again and have like
Oh my
discussion
gosh,
groups.
that's a great idea. Because again, to like have it like the solo practice and then be in community and held with it
Yeah.
would be really cool.
Yeah. But is there another book beyond that one that you're referring to, The Beloved?
I mean, there's the Plotkin books that give you more like textbook understanding of the beloved. But that's the best I've found.
It sounds so boring. It's way better than a
I mean,
textbook. It's a
better-
field guide.
Yeah, it's a field guide, but it's more like didactic. It's more like cerebral.
Yeah.
Whereas World is Waiting Lover is a memoir. It's a lived experience. It's like a story of falling in love, discovering and falling in love with the beloved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add some practices that I've been translating to clients that we've cultivated and continue to be at work on, are in the like intimacy realm and self intimacy, and cultivating that, so then you're able to bring that to partnership. And so things like self pleasure, and the huge realm that can be. We often think like masturbation is it, but it's this huge realm of like what brings you pleasure, and how few of us actually have an answer to those questions. And what does pleasure mean? What does it feel like in my body? How do I cultivate it? How do I tend to it? How do I listen to it? Like how does pleasure inform me in my day-to-day life? And so certain practices of like setting aside 10 to 15 minutes, playing some music you really love, and just move your body and touch your body, or paint, or play some music, similar to like the beloved dates. Like how are you following your own pleasure and desire? And then bringing that into partnership, like Laurie and my lovemaking has shifted quite a bit, even in just the last 6 months, of really, like, I would say, rewilding our erotic time together, and shifting from the more, and here we go again with air quotes, like traditional erotic pattern or flow, especially in male-female relationships, of like it all moves towards penetration. Once penetration is complete, or the man ejaculates, it's all over. And instead of entering into a much more like wandery, curious, playful space that has a lot more on the table, of like massage and dance and cuddling and kissing and like different forms of touch that we'd never even discovered before. But it being led by curiosity rather than some rote prescribed like this is just what we're supposed to do, or just fulfilling on this biological need, but instead like cultivating something, like we're working on something together. We're building energy. We're building eros, both with ourselves and others. We've even started to experiment with, like, before we come together in a neurotic partnered experience, we'll take time apart. And like Lori will go like sing and dance to Florence and the Machine, and I'll like come in my office and I'll like meditate and like maybe do some self pleasure with myself, so that we're like tending to our own selves, and then we bring that into the space together, like already kind of priming ourselves and getting ready, but like tuning into self first, and then really being available to connect with other. And so those are things I've been working with clients a lot. Same. The other is like, yeah, agreements, like really simple core routine stuff, agreements. And core routines, like the number of my clients that are struggling with their partners, and I go, oh, great. Well, what are your agreements? And they go, well, we don't have any agreements. Oh, okay, great. Let's work on some. And they don't have any date nights. And I'm like, really? You don't have any date nights? Like nothing? And they're like, oh yeah, no. Like, I know it's a good idea. And they're so foundational. They're so simple, but there's a reason why is they can really work if you invest in them. So
Yeah.
those are.
I remember somebody, this was years ago, they were getting ready to have children, and I don't remember, it was like a baby shower or like some guest book thing, but a question was like, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to this family that was starting? And I said, invest in your dates more than their college, because that's going to mean more to them. And I look back and I'm like, I wish somebody would have said that shit to me back in the day.
Yeah, that's
But it's like, yeah, I hear the beauty of that. And I'm such a visual person. While you were saying that, I don't know why this image popped in my head, but it was really funny. So I thought I would share. It's like, the practice of rolling the lemon on the counter before you cut into it. That's what I felt when you were talking about going into your separate spaces. It's like you're preparing your bodies and your minds and your psyches and your energy to like get the maximum juice out of this beautiful fruit. And so, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And not
We're gonna
putting
call
all
that
the pressure
movement.
on your partner. Like
Yeah.
by just that statement, Jared, I love that statement, like separating, and like that practice that you guys have, like prime the pump, get yourself ready. But it's not like, hey, get me hard, let's do this. It's like, no, I know my body better than anybody, right? I know what feels good. Now other people can make it feel better, but I know myself pretty well. So like that, giving yourself that time to get yourself into a place of arousal, to get yourself in a place of where you're not constantly thinking about the work you're just leaving. It's like, no, I want to be present with my partner, this person across from me. So like, how do I do that to make sure that I can get be fully present with them to receive the full pleasure that I'm looking for or that I'm wanting, but also understanding what pleasure means for you in that moment. Because that could be the pleasure of listening to an album and spending time with Lori, or that could be the pleasure of finding a climax of some sort, in some kind of way. But it's like, when it's not, when you don't define pleasure, my head goes completely to sexual pleasure, erotic pleasure.
Right.
Well,
right?
and the word that keeps coming up, is you all have been saying things, is attunement. Like it's an attunement practice, right? I'm attuning to myself so that I can then attune to Jared and share that. And I'm thinking about a coach who's been like, especially after like pretty intense, like sexual escapades or whatever sessions, like to come back, like, they coached me, like, be like, okay, Lori, I'm like pressing on myself right now, like, back to myself, and like, Jared, I'm now pressing on Jared. And to be able to go to those places, it's like, you have to listen to your body in the first place, which is not how I've always had sex. That presence that you're just talking about, most of my sexual experiences as a younger person was not that. It was total dissociation. And so even as Jared is sharing some of how our sex life has evolved, it's like been this really beautiful process of listening to our bodies. Like, what does your body actually want? Attuning. What does my body actually want? Attuning. Like finding that connection, and just getting out of those just like, okay, you have a penis and I have a vagina, this is how it's supposed to go.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And
And
what
it
I
feels
heard in
way
that
more
too
liberatory.
is being with pleasure rather, and I know this is pretty common, like phrasing, but like rather than being goal oriented as like some finish line, right? It's like being in it and being with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so much. I'm like, yes, like my everything in me is like, yes, that. So,
Well, yeah, and you and your work is highly attuned to that as well.
It
Learned
is.
some of that from you, friend.
Thank you.
Well, as we start to wrap up, where can people go to find more about you guys, to maybe seek some advice from you guys, to watch the arc of the relationship that you guys have created, some kind of way to be in contact with you guys? What are some of those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, we both have our individual websites and then a joint website, so we'll make sure you have those to send out to people. I don't really know that you're doing social media much anymore, are you?
Not much.
I'm just singing karaoke on it, so if you want to see that, then feel free.
And
But you guys also have a website for the two of you doing work together, correct?
Yep. We'll make sure you have that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Confluence Mentoring, or I might have changed it.
no, I think it's confluencementoring.com.
Yeah.
And then LaurieArchbold.com. My medicine work and coaching is JaredArchbold.com. My surrogate partner and intimacy work is RedwoodSacredMuse.com.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you guys so much for all the openness, for the advice, the sharing, and just obviously, it's been a while since I've had a chance to talk to you guys, so it's great to have this conversation. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks for having us, both of you.
Thank you.
Always.
Happy New Year to you both.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. Thank you for listening. Remember to like or subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you're listening to. And if you found this episode helpful, please comment or share it with a friend. Check out the show notes for links to get in touch with myself, Awa, or our guest. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. This episode was recorded, edited, and produced by Adam Reel.